It's the Flow Friday Night Sports Show, heading towards the end of the first hour of the program. And for our listeners across South Australia, the South Australian Flow sporting family, tell you what, Flow man, we've been focused pretty heavily on the Eyre Peninsula and what's going on with football and netball over there recently. And I was really hoping that we would have a special guest or two on today to go through it, but it just hasn't materialised.
Yeah, and there's an interesting part of that. You wrote a really good article about the ramifications of where Eyre Peninsula football goes now that we've seen the ratification of the changes, where Western Eyre is now a football league, and we have Eastern Eyre picking up the Central Eyre United, the amalgamation of Woodner and the Bulldogs coming together. And then, of course, we've got this amalgamated for this season club, Elliston Districts, comprising of the Western Districts around Poochera and Minnipa, and Elliston going into the Great Flinders. And that's been ratified now by SANFL, their community football branch. It means that with the Western Eyre competition, that Streaky Bay, which is the West Coast Hawks, the Pede Nippy folk too, coming in from the farms, they will be heading up to play against the Ceduna and Penong base sides, along with Wirrala also doing so. Your article, though, was pretty hard-hitting, Jason, and I have to say the context that you brought this article out in is where to now, though. After this season's played out and we set the dust down, the dust gets down, a bit of moisture falls, hopefully a lot of rain on the Eyre Peninsula, yes. Where to now for this competition and these competitions in general?
Well, this is just part one of a three-part series which is going to go up on flownews24.com.au. Pacer Murphy from SA Community Football hopefully will be joining us early next week. We were trying to get him on today. It hasn't materialised, unfortunately. We know that there are people that haven't been prepared to come on to this point. Pacer's been one of those due to whatever's been going on. We'll ask him why when the time comes. But, look, I think what we do know, having had conversations with a few people from SA Community Football in the past, is what it is that they want to do. What they want to do in the long term, does it match up with what locals on the Eyre Peninsula want to see in their football and netball competitions? We've already lost a league and done so very recently. That's still pretty raw. And people are obviously going to be upset about that because they pour their heart and soul and livelihoods into this in many instances. Not only are they volunteers, they're business owners who probably donate various goods and whatnot to keep these clubs and associations afloat. So it's not just a case of a love of the club, you know. They tangibly make sure that these clubs and associations survive for the length of time that they do. So, look, I've written the first part, scenario one, is that I expect there to be little to no change from the current setup in 2022. When I say little to no change, I think there'll be some blowback against what's happened this year from various clubs. And I think what we'll see is a bit of resistance to anything that SA Community Football want to go ahead with. I've said in there little to no change because I think there could be some minor tweaks. If you want to have a listen or want to have a read, of what those minor tweaks will be, head to flownews24.com.au. But I have said that I think what could happen is that one club could come out of Great Flinders on the Eyre Peninsula and move into the Eastern Eyre associations, which then would see you go 6, 6, 6 and 6 in the four leagues. It makes sense. At the moment, we've got both the Western Eyre League, the newly formed Western Eyre League up there, Far West, and the two teams that have come out of Midwest. That's got 6 clubs in it. In Port Lincoln, they've got 6 clubs. Eastern Eyre has 5. Great Flinders has 7. Now, that creates some challenges with programming. In fact, we've had a look at the Great Flinders program today, haven't we, Flowman? It took us a while to get our head around it.
How did you even get a copy of it? You have got some contacts around this great sporting world, Jason Regan, and I know for a fact that the first game of the year could potentially be for the people from the districts part of the Elliston districts who live in Streaky Bay. They could be travelling to Tumby Bay to play their first game of footy in Great Flinders.
Well, they're about to find out what they've just signed up for, that's for sure. It's a long, long road trip, that one.
Yes.
And I believe they'll go there twice if this program actually is ratified by Great Flinders. So, look, we're going to talk more about this in the future. We're going to have some more guests on to have a look. And once we're finished having a look at the Eyre Peninsula with this 3-part series that you can check out on flownews24.com.au, our friends in the southeast don't think we've forgotten about you here on the Flow Friday Night Sports Show, because We absolutely have not. And my mail tells me, Flowman, that they will be next.
Yes, and I tell you what, though,
Lots of changes down
anybody
there.
in Southeast, anybody in the central areas, northern areas, northeastern, there will be changes afoot in football in the future. It's bound to happen. And in the Mallee and the Murraylands and the Riverland, your areas too. I'll just, though, close this segment, Jason, by saying that from Streaky Bay to Tumby Bay, it is 282 kilometres. So just get your head around that for football. 3 hours drive, 3 hours and 11 minutes, by the way, in the morning. So if we get 9 o'clock start for the under 13, under 14 boys in the football, that means we got the kids up at 5 o'clock.
Dark till dusk.
Think about it.
That. Yeah.
It's where country football seems to be heading, and I'm not 100% sure that that is the outcome that we really want, but that's my personal viewpoint. Jase, Regan, we're going to be back with more on the Friday Night Sports Show.